Welcome to episode 64 of the Guitar Builders Basics video podcast. Luthier's tips, tricks and training from me, Ben Crow, at Crimson Guitars in the UK. This is an almost daily video podcast where I answer your questions on how to build guitars, what tools to use, hand tools, power tools. I'm slightly opinionated, but love learning. So, if you have a question for us, please ask away in the comments below the video. If you have an issue with anything I've said, put it in the comments. The day I stop learning is the day that, frankly, I need to just go to bed and die. Because there are many ways to build guitars. There are dozens of ways to hold a hand plane. And my method might be wrong, or not quite so good as it should be. So, yes, questions, comments, topic suggestions, etc., put it in the comments below the video, or you could go to the Crimson Guild, which is our online guitar building school. It is a place where there are premium videos that you can either pay for, or most of the other YouTube videos are up on there as well in a nice, easy to navigate fashion. And if you support us by becoming a premium member, it just helps all of this video stuff to happen. Bit of news, I've employed somebody just to edit video, which means that the guild and the amount of videos that are coming out, it's going to quadruple or octuple, I don't know. You're gonna get a lot more videos if you're a premium guild member, and even the YouTube stuff is going to start coming through a bit more rapidly. So basically, without your support, this would not be happening. Thank you very much. Now, on to today's question. This comes from Jeff Barber. He says, tone controls. Do you need them? To pick up sound better without them? And how do potentiometers work? And why your 500k pot may not be a 500k pot? I'll tackle that last one first because it's easy. And I am no electronics genius. I'm a woodworker. Give me dust and a chisel and I'm happy. Give me a soldering iron and I'm immediately in a different world. I think it's because the bass player that I had do my wiring for me when I first started building guitars, he insisted on trying to explain exactly how pots work, etc. But he didn't explain it in English. He drew these crazy weekly diagrams and said things like capacitance and... in fact, I didn't remember the words because they were... My brain clouded over and I stopped listening and I said, can you just wire the guitar for me, please? And that seems to have stuck ever since. Anyhow, your 500k pot may not be 500k. They are built with a variance in mind. When they manufacture a guitar pot, even CTS or Bournes, who are the current industry leaders, unless you want to pay 40 or 50 quid for a single potentiometer, they're built with a plus or minus 10 or a plus or minus 20% variance in mind, which means that when I buy a CTS pot or a Bournes pot, I can measure it and may even have something that's as low as 400 or as high as 600. They're generally a bit closer, but they're almost never bang on. It is just the way of the world. You're buying this pot for £6, you're not going to get something that is absolutely calibrated. You can go to some suppliers who will measure a whole load of pots and put them in matched sets, and we have actually sold matched sets of pots in the past at Crimson Guitars. I'm not convinced that having a matched set rather than a set that is roughly the same makes much difference to the sound. Some people are. I'm not even going to get into that. It is possible, but electronically I doubt it makes much difference to the tone. Now, what does make a difference to the tone? For example, a 500k pot will be brighter than a 250k pot. Now, humbuckers, for example, are naturally a warmer, darker, thuddier sort of tone. And as such, you want a 500k potentiometer in order to make them brighter. If, however, your humbuckers are too dark and or too bright, you can try a 300k or a 250k pot. You can even buy 400k pots if you want, if you've got the right supplier. So that's the basic rule. How do pots work? Essentially, it is, and this is the simplest way I can possibly say this, and completely from a layman's point of view. I am not an electronics genius. Inside of your pot, it's a rotary turning thingy. How layman can you get? And it's got a graduated bit of carbon or a strip of something in there that goes from tiny to big. And essentially it lets more signal through depending on where the pot is. Okay? And that's all it is. A potentiometer is basically not even a potentiometer, that's the wrong term for it. It is a variable resistor, which means depending on where in the curve you are at, the amount of signal that is being let through goes through. That sentence I don't think made much sense, but I'm going to just leave it hanging there like a bad smell. Now, that's basically how they work. You then also have capacitors. A capacitor is what makes a tone control tick, essentially. Your capacitor, it lets high frequencies escape. You're running your signal through the pot and then out to the amp. You're also running your guitar signal from the pickups through the capacitor and then out through to the amp. The capacitor removes high signals. It removes trebles. So, no, it's the other way. It lets high frequencies escape out of your circuit. So it will basically ground some of the higher frequencies. Even if your tone pot is at full pelt, it's still going through the capacitor and some high frequencies will be escaping. So you can experiment with different capacitor values to get a different tone. And every single guitar, be it, if you sit there with 20 Les Paul type guitars made by Gibson themselves and experiment with 10 or 15 different capacitor values, you will get, well, even if you've got the same capacitor in all of those guitars, you will get different tones. So each guitar, you need to experiment. Every single guitar that we build, we put a cap in, we listen to it. If we don't like the tone, we put another cap in, listen to it, and go that way. And you can use, we've got a little, those little clips, crocodile clips, connected up to capacitors that we can then just run through without having to resolder every single time. Okay, that was down and dirty and quick and nasty. If you remove the capacitor entirely from the equation by having a treble bleed circuit or something like that, or by just saying, look, I don't want a tone control. Let's get back to your question. He says, Jeff Barber says, do you need tone controls? Not really. Not really. Do pickups sound better without them? Not necessarily better. Better is subjective. Your pickup will sound exactly as your pickup is meant to sound from the supplier. It will be uncolored by the fact that there is this extra electronical component in between it and its circuit. However, frankly, you're putting your pickup through a jack lead. If you've got a £5 jack lead, it's going to sound worse than it could sound worse than a £50 jack lead. If you've got a £10 amp or a beautiful vintage Mesa Boogie, it's going to sound different. So adding a tone control, it will affect the tone. Whether it affects it for the better or the worse is entirely up to you. As with everything in guitar building, please just experiment and try it. See what you think. I have got a little, in fact it might even be in front of me. Here we go. I've got a little barrel jack socket connected up to some wires, and at the end of the wires I've got crocodile clips. Now what I do is I hook this up to an amp. I have one of these on the live and one on the earth, and I can hear what a pickup sounds like going straight through to the amp, and then I can crocodile clip this back later into the circuit, so after a volume control, and see if it's made any difference. And then after the tone control and see whether I like it or not. And it's a physical experimentation. Don't give me, you can't talk to me personally and say, the resistance of this pot is X and it will give you this effect. Not interested. Here's my amp. I know what my amp sounds like. I know what my guitars tend to sound like. Let's see what this does. And in the end, frankly, most guitar builds will be the same, I think. Let me see if I've answered your questions. Roughly. In layman's terms, I think so, yes. Now, experiment, have fun, see what you prefer. And if you want to make a massive difference to the tone of your guitar, go out, buy a bunch of 4 or 5 pence capacitors from eBay and have a range and see. The traditional capacitors that we currently use in our tone circuits are not necessarily the best. Just because we've been doing it this way for 60 plus years does not mean that it's better. Lower value caps really actually do allow for a much more present sound in your guitar, in my opinion. I suppose I'm going to have to do a video on that subject now, aren't I? Ha! Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Flickr, all of that stuff. I haven't posted much this week, but as we calm down, there is all that happening. If you want to support us financially, please join the Guild as a paid member. You get access to up to 50 premium videos, and we're uploading 4 or 5 more a week at the moment. And or you can go to the Crimson Guitars shop, where we are making premium boutique level quality guitar building tools, from leveling beams to leveling files to nut slotting files and everything. We're taking on the big boys and doing it better than they are. Better. Better. Really the best. We are better. I was about to feel guilty about saying that. Better.